Good morning. It's early. It's just after 6 a.m. It is already steamy here in North Texas, and I'm outside my favorite store, Home Depot, because I cannot find anybody to build this workbench for me, and it's driving me crazy. Like, people just flaking out and kind of ghosting me, and yeah, I'd love to do it, and here's an estimate, and then they never, write me back. So I'm over it. I don't think that this is going to be a too much of a complicated build. I mean, it's a workbench. It's really fairly easy, straight cuts. I don't have the cutting equipment though. So on a brainstorm last night, I came to Home Depot and I was looking around and trying to figure out how I could build this thing. Asked, and they cut the boards here for you. So at least at my Home Depot, I can't speak for all of them. I would call ahead. I ended up at Lowe's last night as well, and they don't cut boards, at least not at this particular store, because somebody ruined their saw, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I left Home Depot last night with an idea in mind. I did a little bit of internet research. I sketched out my plans, and I'm back. It's like they open at 6. It's like 6:10 in the morning because I wanted to be here before they get too busy. I'm gonna find somebody to help me. I'm gonna get all the boards that I need, and based on my measurements, which is only 3 feet wide by 5 feet deep, I can fit all this wood in the back of the Jeep. So I'm about to go in, see if I can find somebody to help me out. I'm gonna get all the boards cut, a couple of other things that I need for this project, and then I gotta go to Lowe's because they didn't have the Simpson StrongTie, the specific one that I needed, here at Home Depot. They have it at Lowe's, so I'm gonna head to Lowe's after this, and eventually we're gonna build this workbench ourselves. So look, it all fits in the back of the Jeep. I have all the cuts made and I'm heading home. Okay, I'm back home. We're gonna do this. Here are my boards with the extra cutoffs that I didn't need. Thank you to Jose in Wiley at the Wiley Home Depot. Did an excellent job cutting everything for me. Showing up early was exactly what I needed to do. There was no stress, no pressure. There wasn't a bunch of people in line, a bunch of customers asking for help. I walked right in, I had my cut list, found a nice young man who was willing to help me out, and he cut everything just perfect for me. So that worked out quite well. I've got my Simpson StrongTies and the other materials that I need. So I'm going to get started here and I'll show you what I'm doing. So this is the first thing that's really important. I bought these, what's called a Simpson StrongTie. You can find them at hardware stores or online. I did post a link to them, or I added them to my Amazon store. So if you're familiar with my Amazon store or want to go check out my link, it's in the video description. I do get a very small commission, and I laugh because it's really pretty small. I think enough to buy a cup of coffee maybe. But anyway, I added these to my store, so just check out the link and you can see them there. Now, they have different different styles. This is the one that I bought because I wanted my workbench to have 4x4 posts at the corners, and so this one was made for that. And what you see here is that it slips on to your post. Let's see if I can do this. And then you just stick your 2x4s right in there, and it's a perfect way to affix these posts together with 2x4 braces and start to build out your workbench. There are other YouTube videos about using these Simpson StrongTies. There are different brands, or excuse me, not brands, I keep saying that. There are different sizes. There's even a kit, a workbench kit that they make. But I needed one because I really wanted 4x4 posts. And so I needed this one that was not in their kit, but was still easy to find. I got these at Lowe's, but again, you can even pick them up on Amazon. So I'm going to use these to build the fundamentals of my piece. Okay, so a couple of considerations for you as you go into thinking about your wood cuts. For me, I wanted my table height, my work table, to be about 41 inches tall. That's just a good height for me in terms of working and cutting glass and that kind of thing. So I've bought casters that go on the bottom that are about 4 inches. So you have to account that into the height. Then I have a 36-inch board here, and then with the extra space at the top, I should come up, it's a 3/4 inch plywood, so it should be almost exactly 41 inches, give or take a little bit, which is fine for me. So for my bottom shelf brackets, or my bottom brackets, this will be the bottom of my post, I am putting this bracket flush with the bottom. Now you can adjust this as much as you want. So if you want what becomes the bottom bracing. And if you're going to put a bottom shelf, if you want that higher up in your workbench, you can do that. But for me, I'm going right here to the very, very bottom, because I want as much area in between the bottom shelf and the top as I possibly can. Then for this, you don't actually put, for me anyway, I'm going to put a top flush across, and so a top piece, top board. And so you want to move this bracket such that this ends up being flush, so that then the top of my workbench sits flat across the top of that. It'll make sense in a little bit if it doesn't now, but I'll show you that in just a little bit. So I've got a clamp here. I'm going to clamp these down just to make sure they don't move on me, and then screw a couple of screws in here to secure them. And I'll do that on all 4 posts. And then I will start to assemble the cross beams here. A couple of other, just FYI, if you're not too familiar with how these things work. This is a 4x4 post, but at least in the United States, it's not actually 4x4. It's more like 3.5 by 3.5. So you got to take that into consideration. Just like a 2x4 is not actually 2 inches by 4 inches. Most likely it's about 1.5 inches by about 3.5 inches. So thank you, wacky US system. I don't have any idea why, but as you're thinking about drawing up your plans and going in with a cut list, you have to make sure that the wood is the size that you think it is and not as it's advertised. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and work on this, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so I've got my 4 posts done here. I've just put 1 screw in to hold it on each side, and then I'll go back and reinforce it with more screws. A note on that, don't underestimate how many screws you might need, and think about buying the right tools just to make the job a little bit easier. So I bought these also from Simpson StrongTie. I bought these wafer head screws, number 8s. I put these in the Amazon store as well, just so the link would be easy. You can probably get this stuff cheaper elsewhere, but you know, for me, it's easy to dump everything in my Amazon store. So anyway, these are, it says no pre-drilling, and they're absolutely right. And so it's made this job so simple because I didn't have to pre-drill any holes. They've got such a sharp tip on there, sorry for my dirty fingers. And they're wafer head, so they've got kind of a smaller head to them. These went in like butter. And so, you know, spending a little money for the right tool really made a difference. This is a 100 pack, but on this, these have so many holes in it. If I were to use every single hole to reinforce every board, there are 18 holes per bracket. And then obviously I need 4, so that's 144. I'm not gonna use 144. I just bought 100. I think every single hole would be a little bit of overkill. I can do 12 or so on each one of these and be just fine. So I am now going to start to put this thing together. Look at that, people. It has come together quite well so far. So this, I don't know, this took me 25, maybe 30 minutes. So I've got, again, just kind of some screws in there to kind of hold it all together. I'll go through and drill a bunch more in order to shore it up, but just wanted to show you that. And then over here, this is going to be the bottom shelf. So I wanted this to be really sturdy and flat, both on the bottom shelf and the top shelf. So I went with the 3/4 inch hardwood plywood. And for the bottom shelf, because of the construction of this thing, see, I need to notch out the corners. So I'm just using a piece of this scrap. I'm going to just use that as a template, put it on the end, draw a little pencil line around this, and then get out my quick little oscillating multi-tool that I bought. Of course, I have to buy a tool for this project. I didn't really have to, but I wanted to. Anyway, I'm gonna notch out these corners so that I can drop it into here, and then I will screw it down to those framing pieces down below. Okay, so I have my safety glasses on, and I'm using my new rigid oscillating tool. So I have a rigid screwdriver or drill that you saw me using, and they all use the same battery, so I decided to buy this, and I love it. I didn't need a new oscillating tool. I could have used the jigsaw that I have, but this is a hell of a lot more fun. So anyway, I just use this tool to notch this out. I'm gonna go do the other 2 corners. I did clamp this down so that it doesn't move on me while I'm working, And this is made pretty quick work of this. This thing cut through like butter, no cords, super easy. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, I've got my board in, fit in perfectly. Oscillating tool for the win again, because this is what's going to feel like makes it truly a custom glass workbench. So you know I'm a fan of these baker's racks for sheet pans to store molds and glass projects in action and such. I bought an old used one of these. I just found it on Facebook Marketplace. I got it real cheap. And I just used the blade that came in the package with this thing. There's probably another blade I should have used instead, but this one seemed like a multi-use blade. I used this both for the wood, and then this is just aluminum. And so put on some hearing protection because it was loud and cut this sucker down to fit inside the base of this. Now I'm going to use some brackets and some screws to kind of really secure it in here, but then I'm going to have some awesome storage within my workbench. Okay, the piece is upside down. So here's what I did. I took this bottom board and I screwed it on all the way around so that it was into the 2x4s. And because it's the bottom shelf, I don't really care about having screws in there, but I don't want the top to look that way. So what I've done is, and I also affixed my shelf, which is now suspended here. I'll show you that after we turn this back over, but I just use various screws and stuff. You know, this is aluminum, so you can drill into it pretty easily. And so I use some corner joints and angles there to affix that. Okay, so now I've cut the top. I had the top cut so that there was an inch overhang all the way around. So I've kind of centered this, and I don't want the screws to be seen on the top. I want a nice flat top surface. So I have bought a 20 pack of these corner braces. I just got these at Home Depot, and I'm going to, this is the bottom, so I'm not doing it, but I'm just showing you. I'm going to put those all the way around on the top to affix the top to it. And I've got some screws. You've got to make sure that you buy small enough screws that they don't go through your 3/4 inch plywood. But I've got those, and I'm going to fix the top all the way around, and then I'm also going to put my casters on the bottom. All right, this table is done, but first I'm going to show you how close I was. Didn't I say I wanted it to be 41 inches tall? Check that out. Okay, the table's done. I am so happy. There's my sheet pan storage underneath. Hang on. Sorry, that fan is so loud. There's the sheet pan storage that's underneath. I'll fill that up. That'll hold 8, and I can put one down on the very bottom and get 9 pans under there. So that's great storage for me. I did go and I used my handy dandy new tool, and it came with a 60 grit sanding pad. So I used that to just knock the sides down a little bit. And guys, I'm just so thrilled. The casters lock. It will move quite well for me. Now I've got some other ideas in mind for future modifications on this thing as I'm going to keep building out my studio, but the base of it is done. It is ready to rock and roll, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks for following this. Keep subscribing to the channel, or keep following the channel, and I'll have more project updates coming very soon. Thanks everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.